Hello beautiful people, what is up? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Lexi and in today's video I'm going to be talking about annotating, which I've already talked about on this channel, but I'm talking about it in a different way now. But you should definitely check that video out because that video deals with why I don't like annotating my books that I read for fun, for entertainment. It's not my thing. I don't vibe with it. It doesn't make my reading experience any more enjoyable or enriched. I don't feel like I get more out of it, but I made a whole video about it, so you should go check that out. But that's not what we're talking about today. Today we are talking about academic annotating, or annotating books that you have to read for academic purposes, textbooks, that kind of thing. Because that is something kind of different, if not completely different, and I find that sometimes, not always, but sometimes it can be helpful to annotate books that you have to read for academic purposes or are reading of your own volition for academic purposes. I don't know, people do that sometimes. It can really help with your comprehension of, depending on what you're reading especially, it can help with your comprehension of the text, or if you might need to come back to it later to write a paper about it or something, it might just be helpful to have notes that you wrote for yourself while you were reading. I don't know, but I have been annotating one of my textbooks currently, and I've done it in the past. I just find it super helpful if I feel like I need that extra bit of help to understand what I'm reading and maintain it. It's also really good for retention, and it just makes having to read academic books, which can often be pretty boring, a little bit more fun because you have colorful pages now, which is always nice. So, as I mentioned, I'm currently annotating one of my textbooks, and that is a diary of one of the founding fathers of the Constitutional Convention for the United States. Because that's what the class is all about, is how the United States Constitution was written. I'm a poli-sci major, so that's where that comes from. But if you know anything about the founding fathers or the 1700s in general, their writing was not always the most understandable to our modern brain English. And having the ability to sort of annotate and write down what the more complex sentences mean, or what the founding fathers that are discussing in the book are discussing about, having that ability is so helpful to me because otherwise I would just not retain any of it. Plus, again, colorful pages makes it super duper fun, so I'm having a good time with it. It's making it a little bit more enjoyable of a process, even though it is still kind of a trek to get through because, again, I'm having to go through and translate all of the founding fathers speak, which is not fun, but it's happening, and it's actually a pretty enjoyable class overall. But I'm not here to talk about the class. I'm here to talk about annotating and how I go about it. So when I annotate my books academically, I go about it in a bit different of a way than you might annotate books for fun, in that I don't necessarily annotate my thoughts unless I feel like it's important and I'll need to come back to it. I try to annotate what the text is speaking about, or if the text references a different part of the text or a different text that's relevant to the class that I'm taking, or if there's words that I don't know what they mean, I like to notate what they mean, or if there's important people that need some context behind them and I don't want to have to look it up every time I need to know, I'll annotate that. Little notes that I need to leave for myself is how I do my academic annotating in this class. If you were academically annotating for an English class, it would be completely different, but that's a whole nother can of worms that I'm not going to get into today. This is academic annotating for non-literature purposes. That's a bit of a mouthful, but it makes me sound really smart, so I'm going to go with it. Anyway, my process for academic annotating is not necessarily a process. I don't have like a color code or anything. I just pick 3 colors that I think look pretty together, and that makes it a little bit more fun. But if you're more conscious of your note taking and you really, really want to, color coding might be a great way to annotate. If you want to have like certain people's points color coded, or certain, like, if you want to have vocabulary color-coded and then, you know, analysis or something. I really don't have too many examples, but color coding might work for you. I just don't feel the need to do it in this scenario because I'm just reading someone's diary, so there's not like too much to break down into colors. I just try to get the key points and the definitions that I need, the people that I need, whatever. But I don't feel like having it all like in one color, because that's the main thing that it would be, is just like analysis of what they're saying, and I don't feel like doing that, basically. How many times in this video am I gonna say I don't feel like? I guess we'll see. Anyways, like I said, I pick like 3 colors, maybe 4 if I'm feeling frisky. I don't know. But I like to use throughout the entire book just to keep it cohesive, because that's how my brain works. And then I just go through reading and then annotate when I need to. I don't like come back to annotate, but I know that works for some people, and that might be a strategy that works for you, because then you've already read it and you know what's relevant to what, blah, blah, blah. I don't feel like doing that. If my question gets answered later on in the book, cool, I'll just go back and make a note about it. I don't really care. I annotate as I go because I don't feel like taking the time to come back and re-annotate, or I guess annotate for the first time after I've come. You get what I'm saying. You get the point. Do what works for you. I like to annotate as I go. What I do is I will obviously highlight the text that's relevant to what I'm annotating, and then I will make a little note in the margin, if I need to, about what the point of annotating that was. So is it like, what does it mean? Or what are my thoughts on this, basically? And if it's like vocabulary, obviously I'll write the definition. Sometimes I like to, instead of like highlighting the words, I like to like do bubbles. I really rarely do that though, but if I feel like it's not as important, but it's still kind of relevant to notate, I'll like put it in quotation marks, or if it's like a really long paragraph, I'll like put it in like colorful quotation marks, or I'll underline it or something that's not fully highlighting, just so it's not like a lot. But again, that's just an aesthetic preference. So much of how I annotate my academic texts are an aesthetic preference, just because having it look nice makes it a little bit more of an enjoyable process to me. And that's kind of the entire point of this video, really. Even though it does help with my comprehension, having it look nice is just so good as well. I love it. It makes me so happy, and it's so simple, I know, but whatever. It's my book. It's my academic experience, so that's how I like to go about it, and you should definitely not feel ashamed if that is also how you like to go about things, because sometimes having pretty things just makes them so much more fun or more easy to enjoy, even if it's arduous to get through the task at hand, which it can be, especially for books like the one that I'm reading currently, where it's just so painfully hard to understand at times. Either way, maybe I'm just over-exaggerating this whole thing, or maybe I'm not, because it's my opinion and I'm entitled to it. But either way, moving on, I will also sometimes just annotate, as you might have seen already. I don't know where I'm at in the video here, but I will also sometimes annotate and just kind of leave it be. Like, I won't put a note or anything, I'll just highlight it if I think it's like a really important quote or something, but it's pretty self-explanatory, but it still feels important, because sometimes it does. Like, they'll just say, I feel like we should have a centralized government, and that's pretty self-explanatory, but if it's important to the context, then I will highlight it to put a note to come back to when I need to write a paper about it, because it makes it so much easier to just have everything laid out for you. Because now, when I have to come back and write a paper about all of this, the paper is basically going to write itself, because I have all the key points laid out already that I need to hit, and who said them, and blah, blah, blah. So, fun, good times. We love preparing in advance and making my life easier later down the line, even if it takes quite a while now, because as you can tell, these chapters are pretty lengthy. I don't even get through this one, but it's okay. It's worth it in the long run, and I will retain more from this class, I think, because of it as well, because writing things out also helps you retain it. So writing out the points that I need obviously will help me retain the information that they are about. That makes sense. Anyways, I feel like I've said just about everything that I have to say about academic annotating at this point in time, because like I said, I don't truly have like a process. I just write out what needs to be notated. And I think that the main takeaway from this video, besides writing things pretty in colors is fun, is that your experience with annotating and reading in general is so unique and customizable to you, and learning in this case as well. And if you want to just make things pretty to make them more enjoyable, then I don't think there's any shame in that, even if that's the main point of it, which obviously there's other benefits, as I've said, but making it pretty is the most fun part to me, and it's the part I get most excited about. So I just hope that you all realize that you are all valid and you are all wonderful and you are going about your lives in the best way possible for you, and that's okay. Even if other people make fun of you for it, or if you think it's kind of lame, or if you think it's silly that you just want to have pretty colored notes, I promise you it's not, because if it works for you, then that's what's important, and as long as you're getting the knowledge that you need in the long run, I don't think the process is that important. Well, it's very important, but I don't think it's that big of a deal if you want pretty notes. And I don't think you should let anybody bully you into thinking otherwise. That was kind of deep, but that is going to conclude this video. So I do hope you have enjoyed my little exploration into academic annotating and why I do it and how I do it. I hope you have had a great time. If you did, thank you for sticking around to the end of this video. I do really appreciate it. And if you did enjoy, you should definitely subscribe for more content just like this. I usually post once to twice a week, depending on my schedule. You should like the video because it's easy, comment because it makes me smile, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye, friends!